They think of that as the exercise of power. I do not blame them. They are creatures of power, built to dominate, but they are wrong. The term is older than that. It is the interpretation of the truth discovered through communion with the source. We are interpreters of it, not masters. We are slaves to it. That is our first lesson. All others are secondary.
All other attempts had failed, intervened, and halted by the vile first chaplain of the word bearers, Erebus. His dark patrons had whispered things into his ear, leading each imperial assassin to find themselves slain, even by their own tools. Assembling a team of the most deadly creatures that defied the confines of the word human, Constantin led them to their target destination on Dagonet, the mission taking some of them to the darkest and most rotten places upon this world. Constantin even finding his ship shot down by a bunch of junk hunters, unarmoured, staring down at the end of a barrel. However, he noticed something off in the distance, and with a voice that rumbled from the core of an enormous being, he declared, "My name is Constantin Valdor, Captain General of the Legio Custodes, and I hold the power of the Emperor's displeasure in my hand." Death was handed out at the fingertips of Constantin's hand, the miscreants exploding into mist and meat at the hands of horrifying assassins. The plan continued. The target was in sight. Stepping down from the land speeder, they struck, eliminating him, only to find themselves duped. A body double. The plan had failed in regards to except one detail. Spear. A nightmarish creature. A horrific melding of a psychic blank and the corruption of chaos. One drop of the Emperor's blood was the ingredient needed for an assassination plotted by the vile first chaplain, Erebus. Horus lived, but the anomalous threat was expunged in the attempted regicide. Upon Terra, Constantin met with the ruling Assassinorum Council. The disapproval of Rogel Dawn was apparent. This way of war was dishonourable, a sin on the Imperium that they were fighting for. But Constantin felt justified. The tactics were dishonourable, but what value did the idea of honour have on a man who had the feelings of ego purged from him? The gambit had failed, but the value of the death of this spear was immeasurable.
Yeah, like really, yes, the main mission has failed, but they took down a very dangerous, entity or weapon that has been created, specifically designed to kill, psychers like the Emperor. It's a blank, right? So definitely, the fact that they killed this thing is very, very important. Yeah.
It had protected the Emperor. The very idea of their master's death was a sobering moment for all at the table. Your brother will beat us, Lord Dawn. He will win this war unless we match him blow for blow. We cannot. We must not be afraid to make the difficult choices, the hardest decisions. Horus Lupercal will not hesitate. A mindset so at odds with the noble Dawn, it enraged him. The clashing of Constantin, the enslaved weapon, versus the Primarch, who had made a choice to serve the Emperor. But before the argument could escalate, a booming voice silenced them all. The Emperor, the brilliant, perfect being, spoke. "My noble son, my loyal guardian, I hear both your words, and I know that there is right in each of you. We cannot lose sight of what we are, and what we aspire to be, but we cannot forget what we face, the greatest enemy and the darkest challenge." The two polar opposites were merged, the cold, calculating of Constantin, combined with the honour of Dawn, as the Emperor brought the Assassinorum into the light. a new, accountable force, a sentiment Constantin immediately accepted, even if he did not understand. The years began to drag on, as the Imperium burned under the assault of Horus, and the traitorous Primarchs and their legions, each of them slowly devouring and succumbing to the corruption of their dark patrons. More and more Primarchs managed to limp back to Terra, each scarred by losses against the traitors. Leman Russ, Sanguinius, and most surprisingly, Jagatai Khan, a legion's loyalty who even Constantin and Dawn had held in doubt. Terra itself was almost unrecognizable, transformed into a bastion that would give pause to any force in the galaxy. Constantin saw the great towers, where he and the first custodians had sat with the Emperor, basking in his personal tutelage, places where they had once discussed philosophy and tactics, the birthplace of the Magisterium, the order of the Adeptus Custodes, the place where the dream had started and now were destined to be awash with smoke, fire and blood. All roads led to Terra. Both loyalists and traitors knew this, and after over 7 years of civil strife, the War Master was preparing for this final strike. All able-bodied defenders were drawn up, ready to fight on the walls of this great bastion, except one, Leman Russ, Primarch of the Space Wolves. He had prepared his own gambit, a surprise strike designed to cut the head of the traitor's cause before they entered the Sol system. Constantin, Malcador and the other Primarchs knew that there was no swaying him. Constantin met with Russ before his departure, noting the hypocrisy of Russ, with rune priests within his ranks. To Constantin, the ruling of the Emperor was absolute, and this break in the Edict of Nicaea was unlawful, despite Russ's protest that they needed to fight fire with fire. They think that as an exercise of power. I do not blame them. They are creatures of power, built to dominate, but they are wrong. The term is older than that. It is the interpretation of the truth, discovered through communion with the source. We are interpreters of it, not masters. We are slaves to it. That is our first lesson. All others are secondary. To Constantin, any method was allowed within the confines of the Emperor's will, the source. He could not make a choice to betray that will. He was a slave to it. He could not enforce any opinion on it, as the psycho-conditioning of his mind snapped his king's will into his own moral confines. The Primarchs, the creatures of power, struggled against those very confines, their own truths struggling to mix with Constantin's absolute. The Emperor, the Magisterium. He warned Russ that Horus would not fall for his barbarian persona. Constantin knew the brilliant mind that lay beneath. He disliked the Primarchs. They were the cause of all of this, but a part of him liked the Wolf King. Constantin presented Russ with the reason he had come to him: the Dionysian spear, the other half of Constantin's own Apollonian spear, a weapon that had remained firmly locked with Constantin's grasp for centuries, whereas his counterpart had done everything he could to be rid of his. As Constantin departed, Russ told him that he had to do this. It was his nature, something Constantin understood well. For reasons a mystery to him, the Emperor had made them this way. With the departure of the Wolves, the fortification of Terra continued. Constantin took his role upon the War Council, as his brothers continued their battle inside the breached webway underneath the palace. The power of chaos had been growing, the assault and tide of demons putting more pressure on the Emperor's enormous psychic might. The 10,000, the mightiest warriors of the Emperor, were being pushed back, their numbers whittled down as they faced the horrors of sentient nightmare. Each custodian who fell was a loss of unbearable proportions, each a handcrafted human by the Emperor. many with hundreds or thousands of earned names, a loss on the mind of Constantin as the shadow of Horus began to loom overhead.
You refused our offer of assistance,
said Dawn.
We refused nothing,
said Valdor.
You know where the order came from.
and you never resisted it.
Of course not.
Valdor drew in a weary breath.
Resisting orders has not given spectacular results thus far, has it?
Neither has following them,
said Dawn grimly. The tension between the two figures was evident. Despite the informal setting, the Primarch Rogel Dawn was unarmoured, as he preferred to be unless called to war. As ever, his aspect was Spartan, clad in robes of a warrior monk. His
sorry. The Amber King, I'm sorry. But, you know, Rogel, you should understand, or you should know this by now, that Valdor is a weapon. He's a tool. And, you know, whatever the Emperor has commanded him to do, he will do it without fail, without doubt in his mind. He will do it. I don't know how do you expect him to think beyond that, you know? I just don't know how do you expect him to do that. Yeah, because getting angry over this with him is pointless. Really, it's pointless. You're fighting against a brick wall, if I can say that.
white hair had grown long, adding to the effect. The many stone tables of his private chambers were stuffed with the paraphernalia of imperial bureaucracy, order capsules, tactical reports, innumerable requests for audience or support. Even though the doors were closed and locked, Simonas guessed that dozens of attendants still hovered on the far side, waiting for their moment to run the gauntlet of the Lord Commander's unpredictable mood. For now, though, it was only the three of them, locked away in the windowless heart of Dawn's cell-like sanctum, raking over old regrets before the storm hit.
There are days when I think nothing any of us do is free of the curse.
Curse? I did not have you as a suspicious soul.
I wasn't. We're all having to learn new things.
Dawn sat back in his heavy throne, for a moment, letting the aura of control slip. He looked like some archaic warlord then, holed up in his crumbling citadel. As the tides of ruin lapped closer, Simonas tried not to meet his gaze.
The situation remains the same,
Valdor said, steering the discussion back to its purpose.
The Emperor holds the breach under the palace. The Mechanicum works on a way to release him from his duty. But you and I both know they will not succeed in the time we have left to us.
But it's not the same, though, is it? You should have withdrawn earlier. Tell me, Constantin, what did you gain clinging on down there for so long? You'd all rather have died following a command than countermand it.
I do not see
It was a fool's errand. I tried to warn you. Unless we committed everything we had, there was no hope of holding those portals. But no, only the pure could be risked. And look how that turned out.
The order was given.
Dawn smiled, cynically and without warmth.
You see, there's your old problem. You never see any fault in him. You never push back. You never stop, think, say to yourself, is that sensible?
He pressed his great, calloused hands together.
But he can't. He can't do that, Rogel. I thought you understood that. I thought you knew that already. He can't do that. He is programmed this way.
And now you have this conundrum, the greatest of your existence. You were created to be the embodiment of his will, but we can no longer discover what that is. You are his voice, but he is silent. Can you think for yourself now, Captain General? That is what is required.
Simonas hardly dared to look at Valdor.
Damn. Okay, yeah, no. Rogel Dawn has a point. He has a point. He has a point. The Emperor is silent. the emperor is, in a focused, mode. He can't really communicate with anyone right now. He's holding back the demons. So, what's your plan, Constantin Valdor? What are you going to do? Now that the emperor is not giving you any commands, what are you going to do? Because that's what's expected of you. No, Rogaldon has a point there. He has a point. However, unfortunately, this is how the emperor has created him. To be this person, to be this tool, to obey commands. This is how he is. Yeah, but he's still going to find ways to protect the emperor. That's not going to be forfeited in any type of way just because he doesn't get any orders from the emperor. He's still going to protect the emperor.
No one, not even Russ, who was as much bluster as substance, had ever dared to speak with such casual condescension to his master. And yet, when he finally lifted his eyes to that noble countenance, there was no anger there, only a kind of thoughtfulness.
We were faithful,
Valdor said quietly.
I watched while your brotherhood was created. I studied you. I saw the dangers in you from the start, and witnessed the way you fought and acted and quarreled. And still, I said nothing. If there had been a time to question an order, perhaps it was then. But the moment passed, and your great success came soon afterward. I will be honest now, for you have been honest with me. I did not believe you would ever be that deadly. I saw how swiftly you conquered worlds and said to myself, perhaps this is why you were made in the way you were. That was your great victory. You became untouchable.
Dawn listened warily. Simonis did also.
But now, we see the errors implicit in your forging. I should have spoken earlier. By the time war came to this place, the moment had passed, and we were all trapped by our fates. You say that the defense of the tunnels was doomed? Perhaps so. I have fought in other wars, more than you will ever know, that were also doomed. And they always played some part in his pattern. I still cleave to that. The only element that could not be accounted for.
And there he looked directly at Dawn.
Was you.
Dawn lost his chilly smile.
And, as always, the fault lies elsewhere. From the first time I met you, Constantin, you were never quite able to keep the disdain from tainting your words. Oh, you've been polite. I've never met a more courteous soul. But that doesn't really cut much with me.
The Primarch stirred himself, sitting forwards in the throne and jabbing a finger at the Captain General.
See, for all you look down on us, at least we were doing. We were building the Empire, while you were musing over the finer points of the law that binds you. We were making decisions over which planets would burn and which would be saved. I'd rather have blood on my hands than book ink.
For a moment, Simonis thought Valdor might snap then, release the anger that he was surely capable of.
Rogaldon, what are you talking about? What are you talking about right here? That you guys, at least you guys, were conquering the galaxy, deciding which planet will be saved or burnt. What? Where is this coming from? Are you telling me you think the custodians cannot do that same job? They can. They just need to be given the orders from the Emperor and they will do it maybe even better than you. Maybe even better than you. And they can also still be working with ink work and documentation and all these other kind of stuff. They can do multiple tasks, These people are not just a one-track mind, bodyguard for the Emperor. The Emperor made sure that they had knowledge, they had philosophy and wisdom, and he taught them personally, how to become leaders, how to manage things. These are the very people who were managing the Imperium of Man on Terra before it became a galactic empire. Before you were even a thought, these guys were here. They were managing things. Before they even found you, or you found them. I can't remember how it happened between Rogel Dawn and him finding the Imperium of Man, or them, or the Imperium of Man finding him. But before they even found you, man, these guys were already organizing things on Terra, making sure that the throne world is secure, it's ready for the millions of people who are going to be settling back here on Earth. These guys know what they're doing. But for you to say that, you know, at least we were building, we decided which planets got to survive and which planets got to be burnt down to the ground. I mean, where are you coming with this notion of yours? You're not that special. You're not that special. You are just another tool. Yes, you have some little differences compared to the custodians, but you are still another tool. Okay.
Over heartbeats, the two of them held one another's gaze, as if engaged in some hidden test of will.
And yet, the task remains before us.
Valdor said at last.
I came to confer, not to dispute. We know Lupercal will be here soon. You are the Lord Commander. I have invested in me the power of Magisterium. We must speak with one voice from now on, lest further division hamper what preparation remains.
Dawn looked at the floor then, pressing his fingers together in an image of contemplation. Simonus saw the curve of those mighty shoulders and had a mental image of the weight of the entire Imperium bearing down on them.
I speak as my soul dictates.
Dawn said slowly.
If it appears blunt to you, then it is not intended as such. I do not have time for much else. Only truth now.
He lifted up his eyes, which were ringed from a lack of sleep.
And this is the truth. Your power was exhausted in that war. You have fewer than 1,000 warriors under arms, and half of them are beneath the apothecary's knife. My father is silent and cannot guide you. Magisterium is an empty word. I have no doubt you'll fight when the time comes, and reap as great a tally as you always have, but your place is by the throne now, not on the walls.
Simonus listened, unable to keep the shame from welling up within him, as the Primarch reeled off his judgment. The power of those words came not from their delivery, which was issued more in sorrow than disdain, but the fact they were being uttered at all.
You have given great service, Captain General,
said Dawn, working to keep the worst of the hardness from his voice.
But this war has moved beyond you. It will be settled by the legions. If you wish to remain a part of it, you will have to find some way to fit around that.
Oh, okay. Hey, Rogel Dawn, man. Yeah, you're starting these fights. Starting these fights with Constantin Valdor. Like, Valdor is not here to make trouble. He's not here to be the troublemaker. He's not here to be, you know, the person to be looked at for arguments. You know, this guy is just here as the protectorate of the emperor. That's it. That is it. But man, oh my gosh, this guy. I hear what Rogel Dawn is saying. You know, I'm not sure about what was happening in these tunnels, whether the custodians really had to be there to defend the tunnels. I'm not entirely sure what exactly they're talking about, but I think it has to deal with the webway, right? And, you know, the custodians that have been defending that entrance from the demons, I think, right? But yes, they were needed there. They needed to be there to defend that entrance until there was a proper way to seal it. Whether the custodians needed backup from the Imperial Fists. I don't know about that. All I know is that the order was given by the Emperor that the Custodians have to defend that place, and that's what they did. Whether it was a lost cause or not, we can't really say, because if they did retreat completely and the demons start pouring out of that exit or out of that gate from the webway, then what will happen? Wouldn't that be like a serious problem for everybody? So wasn't it necessary for the Custodians to be there to defend that gate, to make sure that they don't pour into the Materium world? I'm not entirely sure, but I'm still siding with Valdor on this, because like we've been saying since the very beginning of the video, the man is a tool. He understands this. He cannot go around that. He cannot, bend it. He cannot do anything. Whatever the Emperor says goes in his mind. And that happens the same way with all the other Custodians. If the Emperor told them to defend that place, they will defend it until the Emperor says, okay, stop. And since the Emperor is locked in concentration, he cannot talk to anyone right now. Yes, probably the Custodians were probably going to be doomed. Like all of them were going to die there. But yeah, all of them were going to die there, but the Emperor did come in the last minute to save them, if I'm not mistaken, right? Yes. But this is how the Custodians were made. This is how they were made by the Emperor. You are lucky, or you are cursed, Rogaldon, that you have free will, that you have a choice, that you can decide whether you want to continue to defend this position or not. But that kind of luck or that kind of curse that you have, the Custodians don't have it. They are toy soldiers. They are, machines of flesh. Whatever is commanded by them to do by their master, they will do it, no matter what. Yeah.
This is why we strip the comfort of religion from humanity. These are the livers of vulnerability that faith cracks open in the human heart. Even a belief in a lie leads us to do good. Eventually, it leads to the truth. That we are a species alone in the dark, threatened by the laughing games of sentient malignancies that mortals would call gods.
Rare is the battle where the Emperor's Custodians outnumber our foes. We are ever beset, surrounded upon all sides by heresy and foulness, just as is Terra itself. Yet like the throne world, we stand resolute, indefatigable, indomitable. Let the enemy come. Let them darken the horizon with their numbers. Still, we will prevail. Warriors in gold, armed with the finest weapons the Imperium had to offer, cleaved apart sentient nightmares in the ruins of a Xenos civilization, alongside their allies, the Sisters of Silence, psychic blanks whose very presence melted away the Immaterium's influence.
I like them. They're also one of my favorite factions in the Imperium of Man. It's the Custodians and the Sisters of Silence. And the Sisters of Battle, yes.
And contingents from the Mechanicum of Mars. The fighting was brutal. Tides of disgusting, horrifying demons ripped asunder against the men who had fought like lions. Spears were slammed into the floor as servitors rammed in ammunition in the blink of an eye. The glorious 10,000 gave everything they could in the defense of the webway, but it was not enough. Against a tide that would never end, against a force that was infinite, Upon the surface of Terra, Constantin acted as their representation on Terra's war council, a task that he knew was important. But each time reports came back of the fallen, more and more of the friends he knew, perhaps even some who he had trained, it took a toll. The Emperor was silent, locked in concentration upon the Golden Throne. For the first time in Constantin's life, he had no orders. He had to act upon his own interpretation of his master's will. Secrets had played a part in this whole rebellion, yet there was one still only known to the Emperor, Malcador and Constantin. A dream slowly revealed to another, Ra Endymion, the son of Kojazu, one of the last tyrants of Terra that Constantin had slain, taking the boy for elevation into his brotherhood. The folly of Magnus had broken the wards around the webway, grounds the Custodians fought so desperately for because of what it represented. Humanity was changing. Over time it would evolve. Its psychic powers would one day rival the nearly extinct Eldari. It was a metamorphosis that could not be unguided. This is why we strip the comfort of religion from humanity. These are the livers of vulnerability that faith cracks open in the human heart. Even if a belief in a lie leads us to do good, eventually it leads to the truth that we are a species alone in the dark, threatened by the laughing games of sentient malignancies that mortals would call gods. Even one group, left unattended, left to the predations of the comfort of religion, could be corrupted, taken advantage of by laughing, malignant gods. The utter hubris of a man trying to control trillions, to chase humanity down until all was within his grasp. A plan to bring the species into the webway, out of the reach of the corruption that would taint our evolution. It was the singular vision at the heart, the dream that the Emperor had told Constantin of long ago.
Okay, alright. No, okay, I see the plan now. So he was creating this webway to transport all the trillions of human beings in the Materium world into this, interdimensional webway existence. I wonder, would they have been like planets in the webway that they could occupy? I think maybe it is possible, right? I'm not entirely sure. Or maybe they could have made like cities like the Dark Eldars, Comora, civilization that they've created for themselves. Maybe something similar to that. But yeah, trillions of human beings being transported into the webway. I mean, that will be a very large task to initiate, and it would have taken a lot of years, but I think it would have been possible. I mean, if they could mass produce these webway gates to different other segmentums across the galaxy, then maybe, give it a take, maybe 200, 300 years, the entire population of humanity in the Milky Way galaxy could have all been living in the webway. And yeah, it's an interesting idea. Now I understand. Okay, alright, Emperor.
The dream that Magnus's mistake had doomed. It would be very easy to utterly despise the creature or creatures that had doomed your entire species. The Primarchs. After years of fighting, the 10,000 now barely numbered a functional 1,000 custodians. The webway foothold was lost, and with a last desperate act, the Emperor had 1,000 human psychers sacrificed to the Golden Throne. Like a blazing star, their king thundered into the webway. The sight, the brilliant aura, renewed the near muscle-locked custodians. With a roar and tide of brilliant spears, They thundered down to follow their king against hell itself. Radiant power that was humanity itself purged miles of the webway corridors, allowing a respite for the survivors to seal the webway gate below Terra. The loss and the strategic decisions angered Rogel Dawn. He was right. The Custodians had bled themselves for a battle they could not win. You never resisted it. The orders were outdated, yet they couldn't maneuver around the orders of their source, their king. The mind truly does make some powerless and give strength to others. You'd all rather have died following a command than countermand it. Constantin and Dawn, the Custodes and the Primarchs, both forged by the Emperor, but the ability to truly think freely was a gift or a curse denied to Constantin, a choice that showed its weakness when the very being his existence orbited was silent.
Me and the Amber King, yay. Definitely. That's what I've been saying. You, as the Primarchs, you have that gift. You have that luck to choose how you want to proceed with things. With the Custodians, they don't have that. You know, whatever the Emperor says goes. And if that was the last order that the Emperor gave them, then that's the last order that the Emperor gave them. And that's what they're going to do until they are being told otherwise by the Emperor. And that's why even the Emperor came into the webway after sacrificing 1,000 psychers, you know, to have that energy to get into the webway and, you know, help out his Custodians to survive this, this battle against the demons. You know, that's the only way they are able to operate under the commands of their master, and that is the Emperor of Mankind. If their master doesn't say anything, they're going to continue on from that previous order. Yeah.
Dawn could sense it within him, never quite able to mask the disdain he had for the Primarchs, how he saw their free will as an error in their forging. But now it did not matter, even with Dawn pointing out all the flaws, the failures, and the position they were now in, words that would drive any man to indignation. Constantin felt nothing, and yet the task remains before us. They needed to present a united front. The protection of the Imperium, of the Emperor, was all that mattered. I am nothing. The words he spoke to Ushatan centuries ago always remained true. An instrument to be cast aside when its function is performed. An instrument. A weapon did not get upset, but nor did a weapon doubt. When all others were panicked, resigned to the fact that they would have to face Horus without guidance, unsure that victory was possible, Constantin was unwavering. He believed with absolute certainty that the Emperor would speak, that if this was the fate given to them, they would face it. Constantin, Malkador, Dawn, Jagatai Khan, and Sanguinius, with all preparations made, found the darkness, corruption finally creep into the soul system. Legions, once birthed upon Terra, who had fought besides Constantin at the end of the unification of Terra, had come home, bringing death and chaos. The layered defense of the soul system was tested, each stage designed to bleed the traitorous forces as they grew closer to the throne world. Thousands had died, as ships the size of cities clashed in the deafening, hollow, uncaring coldness in the void of space. Horus, and now the fully corrupted forces of the traitors were in the sky. From the elevated such as Constantin to the ordinary people who just lived on Terra, they saw the drop pods falling like tears of nightmare. Ordnance fell upon the sacred ground of humanity's birthplace. The smoke and fire began to clog the atmosphere, and so the Siege of Terra had begun. They were approaching through the smog, and fire. They could see them. The traitors, their armor, their weapons, and their features had been contorted. Blood, pus, extra limbs, surgically grafted technology. Their very souls had been poisoned by the influence of laughing, vile entities, the gods of chaos. Undisciplined, bloodthirsty butchers, warriors that reminded Constantin of the Thunder Warriors, unworthy soldiers that needed to be put down. The traitors in their hundreds of thousands launched themselves against the Lion's Gate spaceport, an ongoing conflict that pitted the brilliant minds of Rogul Dawn and the traitor Primarch Perturabo of the Iron Warriors. The Loyalists had fought bravely, but they were eventually overwhelmed. The forces of darkness entrenched themselves, and then pressed further towards the heart of the Imperium's capital. Constantin deployed many of his custodians, such as Aemon Taromachian, to scour the grounds of the palace. Strange creatures had been appearing, demons, breaking the boundary between the material and immaterial. Constantin himself began to hunt them down, using his Apollonian spear to slice and pierce the walking abominations. The unfathomable existence of dark, sentient thought, the demons' so-called life, flashed through Constantin's mind due to the power of his Emperor-gifted weapon. The corruption of chaos clashed against his mind, finding no purchase. Each demon slain was a test of his character, searching through his soul for even the smallest flaw, something no mortal man could ever endure. The days turned into weeks, and then months. Ash and smoke clogged the atmosphere. No matter how long Terra existed, it would never be the same. Scarred by the forces of hell itself, millions were dead, and the fate of those still living was a thought that would send shivers of panic down your spine. Constantin met with Rogul Dawn once more. The two had simply become weapons, no time for rest, both their minds and bodies strained by the demands the Imperium had on them. It was then that Dawn uttered a thought he meant to keep private. We were born for more. It was an unguarded moment, but before Dawn could brush it aside, Valdor held his gaze. In those eyes, Dawn saw a sad hint of sympathy. A moment so utterly human it had no place on a custodian's face.
That is amazing.
Born to fashion a future and enjoy it, said Dawn. Enjoy it, yes, be part of it, not just its midwives. When we were made, the future was full, and now there is only war. All those centuries ago, at the side of the Emperor, Constantin had heard his martyr talk of the vision, the salvation of the species. You are the bringer of the new age. You are the warden of the old. You are the destroyer. You are the preserver. Constantin and the custodians were meant to be humanity's guides, and then, when the dream was achieved, he was meant to enjoy it. Perhaps it was why the Emperor had given him the Apollonian spear, why he had made sure Constantin never lost his humanity, because it would be needed in the peace to come. Constantin got tired. He made mistakes. He was human, however elevated and transformed. The being that lay beneath was a man. We will prevail, Rogul, he said. One day, you'll break your sword and hang up your shield, and you will sit and laugh, and from the window see golden towers standing without fear, or aegis, or batteries, freed from all possibility of threat because of what we do now. Constantin believed it, utterly and truly. I have to. The alternative is unacceptable. The Siege of Terra continued. Jagatai Khan, Constantin and Raldoron of the Blood Angels assembled a force, preparing to sally out in the defense of the Colossi Gate. 3 figures that seemed like heroes of long-lost myths to the mortal defenders, barely holding on. Militant General Burr met the 3 figures. The commander of the front looked on in shock as the enormous Primarch Jekatai Khan told him he had deference as a leader of the zone. Staring into the horrors that was the traitorous forces, he told the 3, "It is my honor, lords. With respect, I'd rather strip bare and charge those bastards alone than give any of the 3 of you an order." The Khan roared with laughter as Ralderon and Constantin smiled. It felt good to be reminded of what they were fighting for. A brief light of humanity in the darkness of an unending war. The task force leapt forward, cleaving demons in numbers worthy of songs of praise, as they felt the vengeance of humanity beat in their chest. As the siege continued, months of ceaseless war, as Constantine and the defenders fought to near exhaustion, protecting the weakening emperor upon the golden throne, who in turn battled with the Immaterium, with the dwindled forces of the Custodes, dragged to every corner of the conflict. Duties they had attended to during the times of peace began to be neglected. Deep below the palace, inside the infamous Blackstone prison, where all kinds of foul artifacts and prisoners were kept, one slipped out. Basilio Foe, the mad scientist who long ago had sought to create a virus designed specifically to kill Legiones Astartes. Running through the wreckage and ruins of the palace, the mad scientist found himself the prey of a monster dreaded throughout the galaxy, a Night Lord's legionary. Wounded and at the edge of death, he was saved. As the Emperor's greatest weapon slew the traitor, Constantine debated with himself, sparing Basilio Foe, as the weapon he was creating may be of use. Men ought to be either indulged or utterly destroyed. The injury done to a man ought to be such that vengeance cannot be feared. His emperor was silent, and so he would keep any weapon he thought may protect that being he orbited. Even if he respected and even liked some, he wouldn't hesitate to eliminate all the Astartes and even the Primarchs. The Siege of Terra had reaped a toll that would reverberate throughout the Imperium. The sacrifice of many, from the ordinary to the super soldier, had bought time. The Traitors' alliance was falling apart, and in a last gambit, the corrupted War Master Horus lowered the shield upon his flagship, the Vengeful Spirit, baiting the Loyalists into a strike they had to take. With Malcador, a figure Constantine had known for centuries, sacrificing himself upon the Golden Throne, the Loyalists prepared for their strike. The Emperor, Constantine, Sanguinius and Dawn, alongside the greatest warriors they had left, boarded the Vengeful Spirit. They prepared to end this heresy.
Wow. Okay, so there was a mad scientist out there who was trying to develop a virus or some sort of poison, I think, that could kill Astartes. That's very interesting. And definitely that is something to keep. because you never know, there might be a second heresy, I don't know, like in the next 10,000 years or so into the future. We don't know. Yeah, but that is something to keep. That is something to keep. Just in case. You just never know. Yeah, but definitely keep it.
Because your own strength is unequal to the task, do not assume that it is beyond the powers of man. But if anything is within the powers and province of man, believe that it is within your own compass also.
A new age had been birthed.
Aha, the two friends are back. Valdor and Lehman Russ. Yeah, I forgot to say this, that, during the battle or the Siege of Terra, it seems to me that Valdor, I wouldn't necessarily say he's changing, but he's adding new pathways in his programming, if I can say it like that. I don't know. The way he was speaking to Rogel Dawn, that was very interesting. Yeah, it kind of reminds me of when he was speaking with Primarch, Ushatan, and how they had their discussion. It kind of reminded me of that.
One that will last 10,000 years before its eventual expiry. A staggering, limping age that will see the last vigour of the crusade dampened down and stamped out. An age of forgetting and smothering. War will never cease from that point, not truly, but on Terra itself, a shocked silence descends, for a strange and short interval, like a caught breath after trauma. The world holds itself static. The surviving titans are like haze-wreathed statues on the grey horizon. Fighting men and women stand, their arms slack by their sides, their dull eyes staring at the falling ash. It is into this world that the Wolf King returns at last, too late to influence the outcome, yet too early to escape it. It is his surviving grey hunters who stalk through the echoing corridors and banish the last of the ghosts from the still hot stone. Even the Primarchs are humbled by what has taken place. They no longer strut, not like they did on Olenor 7 years before. They are diminished, the ones who survive. Valdor finds him in a place that was designed as an observatory, but will become, over 1,000 painful years, of all things, a chapel.
It's a very sad situation that's going to be happening here in the future. What was I thinking about? The earth is littered with empires that always believed that they will exist for all eternity. The earth is always is littered, I should say. It's littered with empires that always believed that they would be eternal. You can just think about the Roman Empire, the different empires in China, the empires in South America, the empires on the African continent, the empires on the Arabian Peninsula. You can also think about the empires in the sub-Indian continent as well. Many of these empires all believed that they would exist for all eternity. And eventually, due to civil wars, due to greed, due to other empires destroying them, they ended. And the Imperium of Man, of the Emperor of Mankind, his Imperium is dead. I don't know how long it's lasted now, 400 years, 600 years it has existed, and now it's gone. What's going to replace it? The Imperium of Man of the God Emperor. That is totally different compared to the Empire or the Imperium of the Emperor of Mankind. That Imperium of Man is dead. It's dead, and now it's going to be replaced by this new one that's coming in. And clearly this is something that many people just did not think would ever happen. I'm sure even the Emperor, while he can see into the future, but I don't think he was actually really prepared for a future like this, where he would be entombed into the Golden Throne and all of his dreams for humanity would come crashing down like this. This is just something shocking, and it's long lasting. And also hearing from the Amber King talking about how the Primarchs are no longer strutting as they used to. They've been humbled. They have been humbled. They will never be the same. The dream is dead. The dream, was kept up with lies. And, what's left of humanity after this is just a hollow shell. Whatever they could have been has now also been destroyed. And yeah, it's just interesting how things have just changed. After how many years? That's what I'm saying. I'm not sure how long the Imperium of Man, of the Emperor of Mankind, has existed for. Maybe 400 years, 600 years. Yeah, but now that's all over. It's all over, and the Imperium of Man, of the God Emperor of Mankind, is going to be starting.
Your brother is looking for you.
He says. He means the lion, who has come back, also too late, and who now rages through the corridors, lost in a storm of grief and madness. Russ looks up. His mane is matted. His fangs look blunt. When he smiles, it is gruesome, a retching of flesh once ruddy, and apt to genuine mirth.
Still carrying that damned thing,
he observes. Valdor does not know if he can ever let go of it. His fingers have been clamped around the grip for so long that they are hard to prise open. The illuminations still echo in his mind. Thousands of them. He has killed thousands.
I am Battle Brother Sky of the World Eaters. My imperfection is my doubt. I am Shadow of the Open Hand Cult. My imperfection is my fear.
I am the demon Bilebringer. My imperfection is my name alone.
Where is yours?
Valdor asks.
So every time Valdor kills someone, that's what he's experiencing. Wow.
His voice cracks with fatigue. Even for him, this has been like a lingering death. He cannot forget what he saw on the Vengeful Spirit, nor what was lost on those Neverborn infused decks. Russ snorts.
I told you I never used it.
I gave it to you myself. Here, before you left.
And it did what you told me it would.
Russ looks straight at Valdor.
Only my blade illuminates those it strikes, not the hand that carries it. Did that achieve anything? I don't know. I never will now.
Valdor lowers himself, crouching on cramped, stiff muscles.
Nothing he did was without purpose. A seed may flower many centuries from its planting. I have seen it myself.
Russ looked sour.
You never stop. Even now. Even here. You're still spouting those platitudes?
Do not be so hasty to write off his wisdom.
He's dead, Constantin!
Russ roared, finally rousing himself and shaking the dust from his pelt.
All the plans are dead too. We've pissed like dogs all over them, and now the galaxy stinks from our spore. Look around you. Try to see this world as those with a soul see it. Try just for a moment to be angry.
Valdor does try. He indulges the Lord of Fenris and tries. All he hears, though, are the voices of the slain.
You cannot get rid of it.
He says quietly, knowing the danger of such words.
Understand this. When you took it up on Seraphina, it claimed you as much as you claimed it. It will keep coming back. It will follow you through time, for it was made for you and no other. Some things survive. This is one of them.
Russ's shoulders slump. He sighs deeply, and flecks of bloody acid stain his robes.
You always did accept your fate, but I never could. I thought that was why he made me the way he did. Now I just think we're all tainted, and I don't know anything anymore.
For some reason that triggers something in Valdor, as if from the catacombs far below, he hears the echo of a voice that will never speak out loud again. Flux and stasis.
You will not change. Neither will I. That cannot be random.
Russ is no longer listening.
The greatest sin on Fenris. To fail your Jarl.
And then, Valdor does something so out of character that even he is surprised by it. But then, this is a time of extremity. The moment when one epoch passes to another, and all but the most mechanist soul cannot fail to be stirred by that. He places his hand on Russ's shoulder and exerts a faint pressure of reassurance.
This is not over yet, Wolf King.
Valdor says, in as empathetic a manner as he has ever managed.
There are sagas yet.
Valdor looks up. The candles glutter in the chamber, shaken by a cold breeze that has no place in Terra's humid atmosphere. He looks out of his window and first sees mountains, blue-black against Fenrisian night. Then they are city spires again, still half in ruins, testament to the throne world's fertile powers of reconstruction. There is so much more he would have liked to have done here, for the galaxy is bleeding and everything is in ruins. Rebuilding must be done right. The surviving tenets of the old crusade cannot be allowed to die, and even his custodians are forgetting so much. But he cannot tell the Wolf King to do one thing, and allow himself to do another. Valdor has always been bound by the laws, even those he made for himself. He rises, reaching for his armor. By the time he leaves, there'll be nothing left of him in the chamber. No sign, no message, no cryptic clue. He slips out unnoticed, for the path has been prepared for a long time. And unlike Russ, he takes no companions with him. That, too, is as it should be.
Is he leaving? Like leaving Terra? Without a command from the Emperor, he's just leaving? Wow. Wow, he really has changed during the Siege of Terra. You know, he's really just been changing a lot. Okay.
He's never been a gregarious soul. He looks back only once, just as his lander powers up from the platform. The heart of the old palace is still there, horribly damaged, but structurally intact, and within it, buried deep, is the one who made those things in the beginning. For a moment he cannot take his eyes off of that sarcophagus, trying to guess whether he knew how this would transpire from the start, or whether, as seems likely, this is a desperate chance set against unthinkable calamity. Once, Valdor half dreaded the appearance of his master's voice within his mind, knowing that it would be there only to give orders or make demands. But now that it is silent, he misses it. There are many species of solitude, but this, for one such as he, bound inexorably to the one who had made him, is among the worst.
Only in death,
he whispers before leaving. The Emperor.
Only in death does duty end. So he still has a duty. What exactly is he going to go and do? Yeah, I'm just wondering about that right now. Because I don't think he's, abandoning the Emperor. I think he's going out there to do something for the Emperor. Not sure what. Okay.
Emperor was crippled, interned upon the golden throne as a carrion lord. The price for the destruction of Horus. A sorrow so deep and so soul-haunting washed over the victorious defenders of the Imperium. From the mortals to the Primarchs, such as Lehman Russ, all except one, Constantin. He believed that this must have been foreseen. It was impossible that his king did not factor this into his plans. From his birth on Terra, Constantin had been taken, transformed into something so far above the limits of a mortal man, but it came at a cost. No joy, no hate, no fear, unbreakable without growth, immortal without passion. A mind of power that didn't have the strength of choice. He never chose to serve the Emperor. There was nothing more for the Emperor to take from him. It was a cost taken for the dream of the species, a dream that needed custodians to protect it. The Emperor had taken much, but there was something he could give him. The Apollonian spear, a tool that kept him tied to his humanity as he waged war from Terra all the way to the stars. A great crusade, a war to bring all of humanity together to save the species. And after 2 centuries, when that dream was within their fingertips, it was ripped away by those whose forging was flawed. The Primarchs. Constantin chose to employ any method, any deed that would achieve the protection of his king. It did not matter if it was honorable. Constantin was born to defend the Emperor. He would let the Imperium and even humanity die for him. All Constantin did, all he endured, all who he had killed and carried with him in his mind was for the Emperor. But now the Emperor was silent. For so long, Constantin, in his heart of hearts, dreaded that voice, the orders that would command him to do the impossible. But now it was gone. The hollowness, the free thinking was horrifying. He had changed. In his last meeting with Lehman Russ, he showed a display of humanity no other custodian was capable of. He had utter faith that this must be part of his master's plan. Nothing he did was without purpose. A seed may flower many centuries from its planting. I have seen it myself. Because your own strength is unequal to the task, do not assume that it is beyond the powers of man. But if anything is within the powers and providence of man, believe that it is within your own compass also. Constantin believed he had made the choice, perhaps the first choice in his life. He had the strength where all others were melancholic. Only in death would be the last words uttered by the first custodian of the Emperor as he left Terra. Time for the Imperium passed. This age faded into myth. Constantin, the Primarchs, all figures of mythology, to an empire that has rotted for over 10,000 years. A vision of a far-off future state, spun out of reality and into the cold halls of an undiscovered time, where the galaxy itself was darkened by strife, and whole worlds were cast into flame. A zealous, authoritarian nightmare. As the Imperium has rotted, a name, a title has been spoken in hushed whispers, linked to schemes that had danced in the shadows of the rotten Imperium. A name who is the enemy of the Inquisition, the forces of Chaos and Xenos alike. Inside a pocket dimension, with an army of psychic blanks, winged space marines, and super soldiers, armored in gold, a figure seeks a name, the true name of the Emperor of mankind, a power that could have hold over the most powerful soul in the galaxy, control in the hands of the King in Yellow. Constantin Valdor, the first custodian, hero of the Unification Wars, the Great Crusade and the Horus Heresy, the Emperor's most loyal servant. Because what if the dream that Constantin's existence orbited did not die? What if it had just changed? What if to save his emperor and the species, it required something incredible? A death, an apotheosis? What if humanity required a god emperor, all at the hands of a king in yellow? A dream was created long ago, and a warrior was forged to protect it. He was its protector. He was its custodian. We were born for more, born to fashion a future and enjoy it, because only in death does duty end.
Okay, guys, yes, that is it with Constantin Valdor understanding 40k lore Adeptus Custodes featuring Sheen Michael Moreno, made on the Amber King's YouTube channel. Yeah, let me just put this out first that, you know, the voice acting in this video was so good, you know, with Constantin Valdor. I think Sheen Michael Moreno was voice acting as Constantine, right? Yeah, very good. I really did enjoy it. I also enjoyed the voice acting for Lehman Russ. That was very enjoyable as well, especially towards the end. You know, when Lehman was shouting, "He's dead, Constantine!" Yeah, that was amazing. Really, that was amazing. And also, of course, with Rogel Dawn, you know, I was irritated by him at some points. I really was irritated by him, but I really do love the voice acting for Rogel Dawn as well. Very convincing. And of course, the Emperor, you know, when he also came in. And of course, the Amber King, you know, with his voice also adding into the mix. It was all very, very enjoyable. Very nice to listen to. And yeah, the story of Constantin Valdor was very simple in the beginning, if I can say that. In the beginning, it's always simple, but with him, it was truly simple. You know, he was made to be a bodyguard of the Emperor, to be his close confidant, to be, have a relationship with the Emperor as a master and an apprentice, you know, to be there for him through the thickest of dangers and through the most complicated of diplomatic or administrative work. Constantine was there. He was there for all that. It became complicated. It became a bit more complicated the moment he was given the orders to assist the Astartes in wiping out the Thunder Warriors. That's when things started to get a bit dicey, a bit murky for him, because Ushatan really said some very important things towards Constantine. But of course, with Constantine, it doesn't really affect him because, this is the way the emperor has made him. But those words continue to linger in him, They continue to linger with him. He always hears his voice because of that spear that he used to kill the Primarch Ushatan with. Well, he didn't actually kill him with the spear, he killed him with a dagger. I don't know why doesn't he want to have a part of Ushatan inside him, but anyways, he remembered those words that Ushatan spouted, especially the part where Ushatan was saying unbreakable without growth, immortal without passion, and how Ushatan was also saying that, this was my life. Yes, it may not have been perfect, it was hard, it was painful, but this was my life and I lived it to the fullest. And that is something that I see that you will never have, and therefore I pity you, because you will never be able to experience the type of freedom I have, And Constantine, it didn't really affect him that the way that maybe Ushatan might have expected. It didn't affect him because, like I've said before, this is the way the emperor has created him. All those emotions, all of that thought process has been suppressed or has been conditioned out of him. All that is left to him is his duty to the emperor and to the emperor's ambitions. That's it. That's where it started to become murky for Constantine. And, as it continued further with the development of the Primarchs, and, when the Primarchs were taken away from Terra and sent off to the different planets, and when they began to be found again by the Imperium of Man, or them finding the Imperium of Man, if I can say that, that's when things also started to change. That, will my master be okay? Will he be safe? Will his dreams still become a reality now that his sons are returning back to the Imperium of Man? He's been asking himself these questions. And yes, there were some times where he thought about if only he could have spoken up to the emperor and told him that this is a bad idea. Making these Primarchs is a bad idea. You shouldn't do something like this. He's always been talking about that, saying that if only they had the chance while they were still being created, if only they had the chance to try and stop the emperor. But, he can't do that. He can't do that. He can't, go against whatever his master is doing or is ordering him to do. This is the way he's been conditioned, as a weapon, as a tool. And, also Constantine has known from the very beginning that he's a tool. Constantine has never questioned that. He's never doubted that. He's never, tried to probe the emperor, to try to ask him questions about why me? Why did you choose me to become this person? Why did you not give me the same sort of freedoms that you give to your sons? He's never asked any of these questions. To him, it's always about the duty, and the duty is to protect the emperor and his dreams. to come into reality. And with the Primarchs, they just can't seem to understand Valdor, and his utter complete loyalty to the Emperor. They can't seem to understand, how can someone be so blind? How can someone be so, chained and constrained by what is expected of them by the Emperor? Why doesn't he say no? Why doesn't he change his mind? Why doesn't he do things differently? They can't seem to understand that this is how the Emperor has made him. Just like how the Emperor has made them have free will, have these different and unique personalities. This is how the Emperor has made them. And that the continued discussion, back and forth discussion between Rogel Dawn and Valdor just completely, opened up that question. Like, the Primarchs can't seem to understand the Custodians. They can't seem to understand that this is how they were made by the Emperor. Because he was always fighting with Valdor, especially in terms of Valdor's decision to hire the Officio Assassinorum to kill or assassinate Horus Lupercal. And, to him, that's seems like it's cowardice, or it's an expedient way of dealing with a threat, and it doesn't have any honor behind it. It doesn't have any sort of respect behind it. And he can't seem to understand why would Constantin Valdor do something like this. And to Constantine, it doesn't matter whether this is a cheap shot or a cowardice move or anything of the sort, as long as his Emperor is safe and his dreams are able to come into fruition. It doesn't matter how it's done. The fact of the matter is that it's done, and that's how Valdor, does his business. And Rogel Dawn can't seem to understand that. And also when it came to Lehman Russ, when he was saying that Constantin Valdor is jealous of the Primarchs because the Primarchs are blood, the Primarchs are family with the Emperor, and it's never been about that. It's never been about that with Valdor. He's never cared about becoming the favorite of the Emperor or loved by the Emperor, or shown with a particular special relationship with the Emperor. It's never been about that. It's always been about the duty, about following the orders of the Emperor no matter what, because he knows that he's a tool. So yes, also Lehman Ross doesn't understand what goes on behind the thought process of a custodian. So yeah, that was also quite interesting. And how Valdor slowly changed even more during the Horus Heresy and during the Siege of Terra. How he tried to sympathize with Rogel Dawn, when they were fighting, and also when he tried to sympathize with Lehman Russ after the end of the war. It really just shows that yes, there is a part of him that is growing into something that maybe even the Emperor did not expect to happen, and this is also all due to the fact that the Emperor is silent right now. He's not talking to Constantin Valdor, so Constantin Valdor has to do things by himself. He has to think about how is he going to protect the Emperor, how is he going to do things without having a supervision from the Emperor. And yeah, he is changing. He is really changing, and that was quite a surprise for me. And now he's out there in the webway. I don't know what exactly is he going to do in the webway, or what is he trying to find. But yeah, he's still having that duty to protect and to save the emperor from what he's going through. So yeah, until he dies, the duty will continue to be with him, for him to be scouring the universe for answers or for solutions to the emperor's predicament, being stuck in the golden throne. So yeah, that was also quite interesting to hear that Constantine decided that he's just going to leave. He's not going to leave any letters or notes or to say something to anyone. He just left. Maybe he shouldn't have, because now the Imperium of Man has descended into this hellhole. The Imperium of Man is now a hellhole after 10,000 years. It's really just a terrible, terrible place. Maybe he should have stayed, but I guess that's too late now to discuss about. I wonder, where is he right now, in the 40k millennium? What is he doing? Is he still trying to find a way to save the emperor? Will he ever come back? Like many of the other Primarchs who have left, who are KIA, or not KIA but MIA, missing in action. We don't know where they are. Somewhere in the webway, somewhere in the warp, and some are, just, oh yes, who was it? Roberto Gilliman. He was, in a coma, but he's back now. He's the only one that's back so far. I don't know who else is gonna come back, but we're just waiting for these people to come back and to see what happens to the Imperium of Man. But yeah, Constantin Valdor was interesting. Very interesting character, very interesting custodian, very unique, and yeah, hopefully we get to see him again one day. Okay guys, that is it. It's approaching the 4th hour now. Thank you very much for staying with me for all these 3 hours and 54 minutes. Hopefully you guys enjoyed my discussions on the video, and if I said many things wrong, or if you disagree with me, it's okay. You can disagree with me. You can explain your side of the story in the comment section, or if I've made a mistake in terms of the lore in Warhammer 40k, you can correct me. It's fine, but just don't be condescending. Don't be a bully about it. Okay, we can have a cordial discussion about this, about this character and about the lore in Warhammer 40k. I'm always open to be corrected. I will never, turn away someone who is trying to, correct my mistake. And yeah, so if you have something to say it in the comment section, and I will, respond to it as soon as I can. But yeah, guys, that is it. That is it for tonight. If you want to check out the original video as well as the Amber King's YouTube channel, the links are in the description below. If you like my reaction, please give me a like, comment, and subscribe to my channel. Click on the notification bell if you want to be up to date with my latest videos. And I will see you guys next time. Whew, I'm tired now. Good night.